my fellow free most sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realms of planet Earth. Today's date is Sunday, March 29th, 2026. This is episode 1953. Where to go next with Iran and Mr. Thiel's secret talk in Rome. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Look Your Luck number 3, Look Your Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or Look Your Luck Roman number 3 podcast. In addition, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you're not doing it, go to paypal.me or cash.app/Look Your Luck number 3. Oh, yeah, so just hanging out, relaxing for the time being. I know it's Psalm Sunday. Next week is Easter, and all that good stuff. So be good to each other as usual. Yeah, they had a No More Kings rally. Who cares? I'm not even a Trump lover, and I just find that overall something like that, a lot of them just want to go out there and protest because we're about one man. They should focus on their local government, state government. A little more essential. You want to plant that seed, not no tree. Think and act locally. And don't get me wrong, Lincolnism is a disease and Trump is only the symptom. Just an example. The wars are going on, another illegal war, all that good stuff. So, not good stuff, but tradition, status quo. But hey, along my man's in there, my person's in there. That's all count. Don't matter. You one-dimensional faction models, faction slaves. Yeah, and I know too. Some people will get a little bit offended when I made a little hat. I had a little snow cap that says "Make Speech Free Again," and I posted a reference to this band called Kickstart, which has been there for like 30 years in France, and people accuse them of being Nazis. I don't know. I just heard some of their lyrics, very horror stuff and all that, macabre. And some people can't take that, right? Well, deal with it. I say mock all these faction hacks anyway. They get what they deserve. They think their team is better than yours and vice versa. Like they're the chosen ones. Yeah, Virginia, it looks like Virginia Giffords real happy with the so-called gun laws they're going to do in the Old Dominion, which is treasonous, and there is nothing more than an impairing contract, null and void, is in their Virginia's Bill of Rights. But, the scam goes on, right? Who benefits? Rothschild-approved wars again and again, worldwide. Like Australia's been having fuel issues, and this one metal band Vader postponed it due to that. It's just one of those things, right? All want us in fear and point the finger at each other and don't want to focus on the real enemy. Finally seen the documentary BB Files. It was good. I enjoyed it, even though it was a couple of years old. I had a lot of good great detail, great information on there, and it was sad thing about it because Yanni Netanyahu, that's BB's older brother, was killed when he was trying to rescue the Israelis in Uganda during Operation Thunderbolt in 1976, July 4th to be exact. We're celebrating Independence Day, and they're doing that. It was amazing. However, he is power mad as far as I'm concerned. When you got people protesting against him for 9 straight months, then look what happened at the border with Hamas. And it's unacceptable. Now, with that and the Gaza, like I tell people, I renounce everything, okay? When it comes to innocent people being murdered. Give a damn who they are. So it's not being an anti-Semite either. Like Mark Levin's calling people anti-Semites because he's shooting blanks as usual. Even Ben Shapiro and And Greenblatt, right? What's his name? It's a Greenblatt from the Anti-Defamation League. These ginos, come on, folks. It's a lot bigger. They're nothing more than a bunch of hags, Oh yes, we got Rock Beast on here. Thanks for checking in. It's just one of those things, and let's do my little rant here. I'm gonna be reading a couple articles from American Free Press. Sacrificing souls is just as bad as murdering people. Yes, that is true. You're absolutely correct. And it's interesting when you get the people out there protesting on the genocide of Gaza on Bibi. It'll be good to add is when they did the lockdowns, they did the forced jabs on the Israeli people. That's not more. That's not a picnic either. That's a war crime, as far as I'm concerned. So the man's on the hot seat. So we gotta stop kissing the floor when these people walk on. They're not entitlements. They're just a bunch of egotistical maniacs that got traumatized, and they believe everything should belong to them. And I digress. All those protesters support abortion. Yeah, that's true. They need to go to work. Right? I get a big kick out of it as well, man. Remember, being a faction slave doesn't pay. So always be liberty-minded. That's how I look at the world. So if people get offended when I make statements like that. But you know what? Who cares? But thanks for the comments there, Rock Beast. All right, I'm going to be read a couple articles here. This one came from the American Free Press.net. And if you're going to read it by yourselves, actually you have to have need a subscription. So it's here. Where to go next with Iran? Israel, the United States, and Iran all have different goals and perspectives. By Phil Garardi. Is generally conceded in the wake of the resignation letter by Director of National Counterterrorism Center Joe Kent, as well as from commentary by leading conservative journalist Tucker Carlson, that the Israeli government, ably assisted by Israel's powerful and wealthy U.S. lobby, played a major role in the United States going to war against Iran. Kent provided two principal reasons for acting as he did, making him the most senior governor official to object in that fashion, against any post 9/11 wars. First, he declared that the war against Iran claimed by the White House and its supporters that Iran posed an imminent threat against the United States was a lie. And secondly, that the war was being fought for Israel, not in support of any unidentifiable American national or security interest. Kent, who concludes we cannot make this mistake again, was right in every detail, observing how high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media worked hard on what was a disinformation campaign to bring about a war against Iran to benefit of Tel Aviv and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And both they and Trump and his staff have been persistent liars about the conflict, even going so far as describing it as an excursion rather than a war to sell to the public. Trump even lied about the U.S. bombing the first day of the war that killed 170 Iranian schoolgirls, falsely claiming that Iran had carried out the attack. These are claims right now, so I'm not saying it's true or not, but you got to look at everything observantly. Observe responsibly, all right? Majority of Americans now believe that the Iran war benefits Israel, not the United States. Kent's letter and reporting by Carlson and others revealed a major gap opening up between conservative Republicans who support the war based on government pronouncements and those who reject the explanations being offered as politically motivated. Indeed, the number of dissidents is growing as the war drags on without any objective in sight, even as the impact on the world's economy continues to escalate due to Iran's partial blocking of the Strait of Hormuz in its normal role as a key transit channel through the Middle East's major oil and gas producing regions. The confusion over Iran is not helped by the fact that President Trump has often contradicted himself on what the objectives are, most recently suggesting that he is considering winding down the war on Iran, while at the same time boasting that we are knocking the crap out of Iran. Trump has also said the war will be over when I feel it in my bones. But he's also sending 2,000 Marines and amphibious assault naval units to the war zone, possibly to stage a land invasion, boots on the ground directed against Karg Island, home of Iran's major oil terminal. Some have called the initiative a suicide mission. U.S. forces will be heavily outnumbered by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces that are already in place and well dug in. It sounds like what happened with Tripoli when Great Britain, not Tripoli, Gallipoli, excuse me. Yeah, Gallipoli, right? Gallipoli. I think that's the name. That's the name of it. That happened when the Britain tried to do that in Turkey, and it went ways and ways. They're getting wiped out. It was like insane. So I think Mel Gibson did a movie on that. But I'll continue on here. Let's see. War Secretary Pete Hegseth has also called for Congress to provide $200 billion to fund the continuation of the war, which rather suggests that no end is in sight. Admittedly, Trump's musing relating to ending the war is based on his questionable contention that U.S. and Israeli forces have largely destroyed Iran's offensive and defensive military capabilities, allowing the White House to either press its advantage or alternatively save face by abandoning what objectives drove the war in the first place. But there is a bigger problem in terms of where does one go from here. That is that Israel was the driver of the conflict since it started. Tel Aviv and Washington are now partners in the fighting, but without any shared view of what the end game might be. If Trump is looking for an off-ramp from the war due to its general unpopularity in upcoming midterm elections, Israel is more set to destroy Iran as a competitor nation in the Middle East. Israel unnecessarily escalated the war on energy resources when it hit the huge South Pars gas field off the coast of Iran, from which the Islamic Republic is estimated to derive around 3/4 of all of its gas. In retaliation, Iran hit a Qatari natural gas processing complex as well as oil refineries in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Shortly thereafter, either Israel or the United States also sent a missile dangerously close to the Iranian Nuclear Research Center at Natanz, right? Yeah, that's how you spell it. That's how you pronounce it, hopefully. Though either is taking credit for the dangerous strike. These multiple events shocked the energy markets and moved a frustrated Trump onto his True Social site to claim that Israel has struck out the anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, after claiming that the United States knew nothing about the South Pars attack, the assertion that proved to be a lie. Trump then pledged that there would be no further Israeli articles on the gas field unless Iran escalated its own attacks in Qatar. He promised that if Iran were to defy him and attack the United States, would blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of the strength and power that Iran has never seen. Israel, for its part, recognized that it cannot destroy Iran without active full participation of the United States and its armed forces. During mid-March congressional hearings of the role of intelligence agencies on the war, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard further confused, "Why are we there and what comes next?" were her response to Representative Congressman Jacqueline Castro, Democrat from Texas, who asked whether the goals of the United States and Israel are aligned, vice versa. Iran, she said, the objectives that have been laid out by the president are different from the objectives that have been laid out by the Israeli government. The Israeli government has been focused on disabling the Iranian leadership and talking about several members, obviously. The president, he stated that his objectives are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile launching capability, their ballistic missile production capability, and their navy. In other words, Israel wants to destroy the Iran ability to function as a powerful modern state that constitutes a threat, while the United States is focused on those specific aspects of the conflict that can potentially threaten the United States. It means that Israel will do whatever it takes to keep America fully engaged in the conflict, even after Iran's perceived threat capabilities have been either removed through an unlikely Iranian surrender or destroyed through the U.S.-Israel military action. Okay, here. This is why Israel has focused on using its exceptional intelligence capabilities made inside Iran, which have been employed since the 1970s to locate and kill Iranian leaders one after the other. They presume that even if the United States wants to pull the plug on the fighting for reasons of its own, they will have no one to talk to on the Iranian side who might be similarly inclined. From Israel's point of view, it matters not all what happens to the United States in the long term, as long as it's there in the next few months to destroy the Persians and bring the birth of the dream of greater Israel extending from the Nile to the Euphrates. And usually you can say the Club of Rome, too, the Seventh Kingdom of Club of Rome would start from North Africa to end of Iran, the east end of Iran, which you could say in my personal opinion, the Greater Israel Project is just a subsidiary to that particular entity. And I'll continue on here. I would say, where is that? Israel, in fact, actively establishing order, special relationships, if it's the extraordinary wag the dog connection to the United States, soars most notably with India, which, of course, has a long history of difficult relations with its Muslim neighbors. In the current conflict, Israel, beyond assassinations of Iranian leaders, has also focused its offensive resources on attacking oil and gas sites, which will heighten the economic impact on energy supplies and hopefully bring in other nations as participants in the war against the Persians. NATO has been proving reluctant to enter the fray, calling it Trump's and Israel's war, but Britain recently shifted its position, allowing U.S. warplanes to use British bases in its attacks on Iran. Though Trump disparagingly, called the move a very late response. Other NATO nations are unlikely to go that route. However, with Spain leading the pack by blocking U.S. planes transiting, through its two NATO air bases, Iran is part to see the war as an existential conflict in which its every survival is at stake. So it's willing to play very hardball. The mullahs, whoever winds up in charge, are not likely to offer any trade-offs. They, for the moment, have considerable popular support. The open door to even talking to Washington, Tehran, would almost certainly require major concessions from Trump up front, like the lifting of economic sanctions, consider a negotiated ending to the fighting. Nor will any Iranian government be willing to surrender its ability to defend itself against destruction at the hands of Israel. They understand very clearly that Israel is out to destroy them. Nevertheless, Iran's president, Mossad Pezeshkian, said if the United States and Israel were to end their attacks, I would, ipso facto, stop the war. So one might argue that the war against Iran being waged by the United States and Israel is going somewhere, but what exactly that means depends on very much of the divergent objectives of the three belligerents. The United States might well want to extricate itself from the conflict, but is struggling to find a simple and politically rewarding way to do so. Meanwhile, Iran and Israel are in for the fight because they both recognize that the consequences for them are more serious and complicated. But one thing that's for sure is that the vacillation on goals and methods cannot endure for no one for too long before Trump confronting midterm elections will either have to choose to double down or pick up his cards and go home. And it does make a lot of sense because we all know that the order, in my view, the Rothschilds, it doesn't matter who they are, were planning to attack Iran even after 9/11. But it's called the pipeline. That will have the United States be the muscle. Let them be the fall guys, the patsies. Because we all know one thing, Keo Bono, who benefits? The Rothschilds, the global order, etc. This is why I talk about the seventh king, trying to fulfill the seventh kingdom for the Club of Rome. And I'm not even crazy about the mullahs either. They're not a bunch of saints. Okay, they've been arresting people for being different, dissidents, and criticizing the government. They get thrown in prison. Some of them get charged for blasphemy laws, whether it's musicians and artists, etc. Well, that's why it's been going on for a very long time, this Lincolnite mindset. They got the power to declare war. That's Congress's job. All right? Not the president, unless it's for defensive purposes only. But we all know for sure always got to look at the dangers of foreign powers and influences. And to be very frank, Israel's one of them. Now people are realizing this. If you read Federalist Papers 2 through 5, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's written by John Jay, and even George Washington explained this in his farewell address of 1796. And many people say he has multiple faults. Okay, so what are you, a prima donna? But the truth of the matter is that there are facts, there are merits to their views. That's why I always believe in Jefferson's perspective. Hey, commerce to all, foreign entanglements to none. It should have been warned. We should heed that advice for a very long time. And there's a nice little letter too, the uncensored resignation letter of Joe Kent, and talk about his values and principles and foreign policy should be better. And I gotta respect that, regardless of what people think. That's why all these individuals want to call them anti-Semites. To me, is just saying, "Hey, I'm shooting blanks." Very Marxonian indeed, So, well, I'm gonna do one more here. This one here. Bilderberg Billionaire gives secret talk in Rome about AI and the Antichrist. It's written by Mark Anderson. As it reads here, at a venue within earshot of the Vatican in mid-March, transhumanist Bilderberg Steering Committee member Peter Thiel elaborated on what he has been discussing in public in recent years on the concept of the Antichrist and how it relates of the modern computer age. The term Antichrist appears only in the letters of John in the New Testament. Thiel regards the Antichrist not only as the fallen angel, Lucifer, Satan. He also associates the concept with certain deceased and living human beings, as well as movements that he believes could usher in a totalitarian world state. Variety Magazine Online noted the tech billionaire and co-founder of PayPal held daily talks starting Sunday, March 15th for several days in the Renaissance area of Palazzo Orsini Tavera in downtown Rome. Thiel, who's also a major investor in Planters Technologies, a company operated by fellow Bilderberg Steering Committee member Alex Karp, gives his talks in the usual high-priced, no-press allow format. While no written record of his 2026 remarks exists, a solid source for his Antichrist perspectives is a 2024 video interview conducted by the Stanford-based Hoover Institution. Thiel often appears high-strung with meandering thoughts and invasive indecisive and vague observations. There also are times when he fully coherent and clear, such as when he contends that the coming Antichrist will be anti-technology. He downplays the likelihood that the abuse of technology in incorporating widespread surveillance would be a major asset, but certainly not a liability for any would-be Antichrist bent on the controlling world. Thiel, a Stanford graduate, told Hoover's Pete Robertson, in the time before Christ, there were many forerunners to Christ. In the time after Christ, there were forerunners to the Antichrist. It's a type. So Nero was a type of Antichrist, and maybe the Napoleon was a type. This seems to be a partial plagiary of 1 John 2:18, which mentions singular Antichrist is coming through many Antichrists have come, already signaling the last hour. Of course, 1 John 2:22 insists that anyone who denies Jesus is the Christ, the anointed one, or the Messiah, is an Antichrist. Thiel then continued with his strange commentary. The Antichrist is someone who aspires for world domination, the creation of a world sort of a one-world state. In some ways, Alexander the Great was a sort of pre-Christ prototype of the Antichrist. It's parallel. It's very parallel to Christ. They both died at 33. Alexander conquers the world. Christ saves it. Robson, which confirmed during the interview that Thiel, in accordance with the 19th century Cardinal John Henry Newman's concerns about the Antichrist, believes there are three important things to take account. The prophecy of the Antichrist is valid. It is the duty of humanity to watch for signs that the Antichrist is emerging, and its supporting century duty has been nearly forgotten. That evidently is where Thiel comes in to be the first self-anointed propheter who will ensure the issue of the Antichrist is not forgotten. Thiel told Robinson, and then you can think of it as a system where maybe communism is a one-world system. So can it be an ideology or a system? And then, of course, you can also think of it as Newman did, were a source of the final dictator of the one-world state. Both Robinson and Thiel could only speculate on precisely how, by what mechanism the Antichrist comes to power. Thiel noted. So, Russian mystic Vladimir Solovev envisions the United States of Europe, a sort of a European Union, according to the book by a Catholic priest, Robert Hugh Benson. The Antichrist is a Jewish socialist senator from Vermont. It sounds like Bernie Sanders, allegedly, but I'll just continue on, right? Yeah. So his claim on that. Okay, well, it's very, very funny, but I'll continue on. Could Thiel have been referring no one other than Bernie Sanders, a Vermont independent? Benson, Thiel noted, portray the Antichrist as a charismatic figure. He becomes president of Europe. Then in some mysterious ways, he's elected president of the world. Robinson added, Pope Benedict XVI several times mentioned approvingly the Benson book, and Pope Francis just referred to it. Two popes and Peter Thiel, who does have some misgivings about using AI to liberally continued. In 1900, early 20th century, people were not yet scared of apocalyptic weapons. They could not imagine anything of the scale that we have today. And so, the Antichrist takes over and talking about Armageddon. This was an apparent reference to many modern evangelical ministers who continue to declare that the end of the world in an inevitable apocalypse is foretold in the Bible, and no amount of human agency can make a substantial difference. Thiel, however, says he believes that the human agency can still play a role in shaping future affairs. Robinson and Thiel then referred to a 1946 short newsreel commentary called One World or None, designed to exploit fears of an atomic holocaust to convince the population that either they submit to a one-world government or there won't be a world. Neither Robertson nor Thiel held out much hope for the United Nations, calling it a would-be world parliament that has all but failed. They ignored the other views on the world body that refer to an anti-Christian undertones of the UN's mediation room and the strong parallels between the UN Charter and the Constitution of the brutal USSR. The question remains whether Thiel, whose membership in the exclusive and secretive Bilderberg group and obvious support for the Friends of Bilderberg, is transforming into a Christian or engaging in a global psyop where he verbally criticizes the very things that he actively supports through Bilderberg, even while the Bilderberg-backed EU has been cited as a conduit of the Antichrist's ascension. Interesting perspective there, you can say, by Mr. Anderson. We always got to look at things a lot broader than what it is. The truth of the matter is, folks, they do want this one world order so bad, and it's insane. So that's why we're seeing all these wars, these economic collapses. They want us to use the CBDC and even put the chip in our bodies, all that good stuff. There are modern medicines, which a lot of it is bioweapons. And I digress. This is why I always tell everyone out there to decentralize yourselves. Think opposite what they're presenting you. Trust me, being a maverick is a great thing. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, but we got to learn to not depend on these maggots, because when they do, they want to lock us in. It's like that movie Metropolis that came out in 1928. I recommend folks to watch that thing again. It's relevant. If you haven't seen it, watch it. And even Rollerball was very cool too, by James Caan. I didn't really care about the remake. That was pretty weak as far as I'm concerned. But that's how you got to look at things right now. So and that will be it. I thank Rock Beast for checking in. So I know you got other things you got to do. But one thing I got to say, folks, thank you for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. And I will, publish this on my Podbean and Spreaker, etc. So you can share it with everyone else. And if you want to contact me, go to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you want to donate, go to paypal.me or cash.app/Look3. If you want to support American Free Press, buy their books, subscribe. And it was cool about them because they're not Democrat or Republican, anything like that. They want to put the facts out the best they can, and you can make your own judgment. So observe responsibly. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.